Hello, welcome to Flory Models. I'm Philip Flory, and I know I say this every week, but I've had a massive busy week this week. But the great thing is, normally I have a busy week where we have, obviously we manufacture our products, as you know, and the weathering and the sanding and stuff, and all the bits that go with it. And normally I spend a couple of days every week just doing that, as you've probably seen in Crib's video. Today, or say this week, Tuesday onwards, I've spent all week doing nothing but working on this suffer, which has been absolutely lovely. So anyway, we're up to about this point, as you can see here. We have the cockpit all done. This is the Wolfpack resin cockpit, which I must admit is an absolute beauty. It's lovely. We're all hoping that Aries were going to bring one out, and I don't know why I always say that, because Wolfpack make absolutely stunning stuff, and in some ways, dare I say it, slightly better. Anyway, can't say that out loud, I'll get crucified. Anyway, so we're working on that one. There's going to be a video in a minute that's going to show you the basic outline of the build, but in a nutshell, what we're trying to do here is we are trying to make a type of diorama type situation with using new techniques and various things we're doing. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a big plinth like this, okay, it's going to be a big old jet to sit on this anyway. Okay, use your imagination now. F-16 coming into land, speed brakes open at the back. Just as he's touching down, main gear on the deck, nose wheel in the air, okay? A couple of logistical things we're having to worry about this at the moment is, first of all, weight. This doesn't have metal undercarriage that bolts in like the Tamiya one. This is just plastic. And also I'm using the resin cockpit as well. So we've got to worry about slight little things about weights, distributions and things like that, and how we're going to do it by installing an acrylic rod perhaps through the centerline tank to the floor and things like that. Secondly, the other thing as well with this one is it's going to have a full lit LED. Now we've done this a few times before. Quite basically, we did a basic job on the Corsair. Now the Corsair had a lit instrument panel and it had lit nav lights. They weren't flashing, they were literally an LED hooked up to fibre optics, job done, okay? Then we did the Phantom. Now the Phantom was a full-on build, everything else, okay? And we took it all apart and, you know, obviously with the refueling lines, and we wanted it to look like it's in deep maintenance, and the cockpit lit up on that front instrument panel as well. Absolutely great. This one is going to be almost an in-flight diorama. So we're going to have a blurred runway, it's going to be coming down, it's going to touch the runway, speed brakes are open, it's going to have a working navigation light on the front, so it's nose wheel light. Off of that nose wheel door is going to be lit and working. The multifunction displays, all 6 of them in the cockpit, are going to be on as well, and plus another couple of lights in there as well. It's going to have pulsing nav lights, obviously the greens and reds, and strobe on the top of the tail and underneath the belly as well. So it's going to be fully lit by using electronics, which we can show you about. Obviously you'll see a lot more as we make our way through the builds, but it's going to be a lovely kit to work with. And actually, I must admit, I'm a real fan of Tamiya F-16s, 132nd and 148. But I'll tell you what, for the money, you can't go very much wrong with this one. And if you want a 2-seater, save yourself a fortune on conversion, just go and get this kit for 80 quid, bargain. Lovely kit, loads of stuff in it. Anyway, here's a short clip about the kit, all the parts we're going to be using, and what we're going to do with it. Hello, welcome to Flory Models. I'm Philip Flory. Another sort of mega build for this particular one. There's a lot going to be happening with this actual build. A lot of the time we do straightforward out-the-box builds, and then other ones such as the Phantom and models kits like that and the Chinook, we really go to town on them. And this is one of those cases. We got a lot of stuff here. I'll just give you a run through of what the basic outline of the build's going to be, what we're going to use, and a run through of all the little bits. We're going to be doing the Israeli F-16I Suffer. Now this is the 2-seat version. It has the CFTs, the conformal fuel tanks, it has the spine on it, and all the rest of it. Now there's lots of aftermarket bits out there. Some of them are sort of really necessary, some of them you don't really need them. Obviously necessary, you're going to need the kit, and we'll have a run through that in a moment, but we have got some of the accessories that go with it, which I'm hoping are really going to sort of liven this one particularly up. If we start at the top here, starting off with, we've got Isracast have done a correction set, for want of a better word, for the kit itself, because a lot of these lumps and bumps you see on the nose and things like that are actually wrong, slightly out of shape perhaps, or you know, just a few little things. This is a correction set that has obviously got nicely resined pieces, like a completely different nose wheel door and the wheel itself, which is something we've got over there as well. But various things like that. So it's quite a handy little set to have. And say a few of the little nodules and that are actually wrong on the kit. So that's the first piece. Second, after that, we've got from Isracast again, we've got the correct weapons pylons for it as well, because their ones are slightly different for like a tier or a triple ejection rack. They're just a little bit different. So we've got the resin version of it here. So that's that one. We've actually got a set of resin wheels. Now these are from Wheeland, which is Aries. Very nicely cast main gear and nose wheels. So obviously we've got 2 nose wheels now. But this one's got the writing on the side, so if you wanted to highlight it. And again, they're resin, so they're very nice like that. We've got the main gear wheel well itself, which is obviously a lot more detailed than the kit part itself. It's a straightforward drop-in fit, and obviously you get the nose wheel one as well. Now for this particular kit, we're going to be playing with a lot of electrics in this one for doing some of the lighting on it, which is something we'll talk about in a moment. So we might be sort of using it, we might not. Obviously it depends on how we go through. We've got the big fuel tanks. These are huge fuel tanks actually on the F16i. Now the thing is, the kit itself does come with the 600 gallon tanks. So we've got here, these are vac form ones, as well as actually got the resin pylon itself comes with the kit. So we might use them, might not. Obviously it depends on how we're going to arm this thing as well, because we might have the triple ejector racks on in the inside panels. We're not sure yet. So anyway, we've got the base covered by getting it. The cockpit. Now, this is the other thing as well, because we're going to be having this cockpit fully lit. It's going to have all the TV screens inside, or the CFTs inside, the actual, CRTs inside. We're going to have obviously then a lot of instrumentation, perhaps some of the lights down the side consoles and everything else like that, and it is going to have a crew in it, because it's something we're going to speak about in a minute. So we might be using this, we might not, whichever way. I'm going to paint it and show you anyway. So that's one done. Now from Marcus Jellyman, we've got the lights. Now we'll go through this in incredible detail a little bit later on, but basically what we've got here is a microchip on this one that's been programmed with the correct flashing sequences for the F16, because obviously some of the ones we've got obviously up on the tail, you've got the big pulsing one that goes off and things like that. So we've actually got those programmed on a microchip, which then have got LEDs, so we can feed fiber optics or little small LED itself out to the various areas. We've got 2 types. We've got one which is a steady one, which is basically permanent for the instrumentation and things like that in the cockpit. Then we've got another one which has obviously got all the flashing lights and things like that. But obviously we'll go through a lot more in detail about those a bit later on. We've got various lengths of fibre optic. So this is clear plastic, which is fibre optic, so obviously we can cut those to length very carefully, and that's what's going to be showing our lights. Obviously we've got some big thick ones for doing the main lights, nose wheel light, things like that, and then we've got some thin ones here for doing the actual instruments and things like that. The kit itself, okay, now this is obviously a very large kit, as you can imagine. Now, Academy did this kit some years ago. Just move that out of the way. Now they did this particular kit, and don't get me wrong, it was a lovely kit and everything else like that, but it had a few little weak spots. What they've actually done is retooled that kit up and improved on it in various areas. I'll just move that all out of the way. First thing you do, you get this extra complete bag of bits. It's 2, it's identical. This is the weapons. This here has the 600 gallon fuel tanks. We have the Python air-to-air missiles instead of sidewinders, and obviously some of the other weapons that you have. So we have GPU guided bombs, as well as laser guided and TV guided as well. So between them all, you've really got all the Israeli weaponry set covered quite nicely. And then obviously, yeah, if you wanted to, there's a lot more out there, but we've got small diameter bombs and things like that in here as well. As I said, very nicely done, very nicely cast, and obviously in a big scale as well. This is where obviously you get the differences with the kit. So obviously we've got 2 types of intakes, we've got 2 types of wheel well, things like that. And immediately look at the wheel well, they're quite basic, but obviously we'll be replacing these with resin ones as well. Because it is an updated kit, obviously you've got some parts for the single seat, some for the dual seat and things like that. So as you can imagine, as you work your way through, some screws are going to be totally new, obviously like this one, we have the 2-seater. Obviously cockpit, it is one whole piece. It's not like the Tamiya kit where it's the front half and back half. This is an entire new front. So this is a new screw to the kit. Crew, nice little touch. You've got a bag full of crew here and some of the little pylons on there. But basically the crew, you've got them standing, seated and everything else. So obviously we'll be using the seated ones for this. Here's another of the new sprues. So we've got the full spine off in here, which is lying in this bag here, and obviously a new nose section as well. Next in, we've got some of the more standard. So this part here, if you wanted to, you could actually make the DJ version, which is the American sort of standard Block 50, 52 F-16. So obviously you've got the small fuel tanks and everything else like that. So you could work your way through just like that. Standard obviously on the old wings and everything else like that, so it's a standard piece here, but in here we have got again the conformal fuel tanks which fit along the spine, a very nice touch, and in here on this particular sprue is obviously the one for the 2 seats. So obviously we've got the 2-seat cockpit, we've got 2 sets of ejector seats, we've got the canopy framing and some of the lumps and bumps that are going to go on this particular aircraft as well. So really much in there. And on here, this is really for the US version, but you've got the standard fuel tanks that go with them, laser guided bombs, we've got HARM missiles, we've got the obviously the US version of the TIA or the triple ejection rack, their pylons as well. I think it's just mirrored on the other side. So there's that one. You do get, which is actually a very nice touch, but the artwork, we get a poster in the kit, which is very nice as well, bit of inspiration. Okay, then we just pull that out the way. As I say, you need a big workbench. You get your box of bits, as I always call it, which is sellotape. So in here, we've actually got a bag. It's got our clear part, which I must admit, I would like it if it was probably not rolling around the bag loose in here and fixed in some ways, but it is in a separate box, I suppose. We've got all the clear parts for the actual weapons and obviously the lights and things like that. We've also got a photo etch piece which has got the actual strengthening plates. Now these are the strengthening plates that go on the fuselage, around the nose and things like that, and we've got a couple of plates there which are for photo etch for the actual chaff buckets, which are on this one are fitted to the spine. We've got a mirror image, again rolling around loose, which isn't ideal. This has got the smoke canopy. Now the smoke canopy, it's not like a tint for the pilots, it's actually supposed to absorb some of the radar reflection and stops it bouncing back to the side. So obviously if you look at some of them, they all have pretty much the actual smoked canopy on them. I'm not too sure about obviously the Israeli ones. The Israeli ones I think carry the clear. The only thing is there is a seam line running through both the middles of these, so I'll be showing you how to get rid of those, which isn't ideal, but the way that they're actually moulded is very hard to get around. The thing is they do look extremely clear, which is a very, very nice touch. So anyway, that is the basics of it. What are we going to do? Well, in a nutshell, what we're going to try and do with this particular one is have this obviously fully lit, as we've said before. We'll be going through a lot of the parts. Back up here. We'll be going through a lot of the parts, as you can imagine, but what I want to do with this particular one is give it a bit of a twist on something we haven't done before. So actually what we're going to do, we're going to come along and we're going to literally have this one in a sort of diorama. So by diorama, what we actually mean is we're going to be fitting this one to a base. Now, fitting it to the base itself isn't a problem. We've done it many times before. The only thing we're going to slightly do different on this particular one is that we're going to have this one in a landing configuration. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a board done with a blurred runway so it looks like it's moving. We're going to have the F-16 coming down with his back wheels actually on the ground, speed brakes deployed, everything out the back, obviously all the lights flashing and everything else like that, literally as it is just touched down on the runway. So the nose wheel will be in the air. So we've got a few little things to do. Obviously fully wiring this thing up shouldn't be too much of a problem, but obviously we'll have to, you know, make sure we've got it all working and everything else as we go along. Secondly, we need to think of a way of actually fixing it to the base so the nose wheel is in the air. If you buy the Tamiya kit, you've got metal undercarriage which actually bolts and physically screws to the wheel wells, which in turn screws to the fuselage. This particular kit doesn't have that luxury, it's on plastic. Obviously the weight itself of this cockpit, if we're going to use the resin one on its own, we just get this cockpit out in here, as you can see, is one lump of cast resin. It's extremely heavy, and okay, we're going to be taking off this bottom bit, but it's still heavy. So by the time we get all the lumps and bumps, it's going to be a lot of stress. So what we tend to do, this one will probably have a centerline fuel tank, okay, with an acrylic rod, which will hopefully take most of the weight. And obviously the acrylic rod being clear, you won't really see it. And I'm hoping it's going to be extremely close to the ground as well, which will go right the way up through the actual area itself into the fuselage, and then it can all be sort of super glued or, you know, actually resined into place back there and take care of it. But that is the plan, to have it up in the thing. Nose wheel light will be on, obviously all the navigation lights, flashing lights on the tail, And on the rear as well, everything else like that. Fully lit cockpit, so it looks like she's just come home and literally just touched down on the runway. So that is the plan with it. So now all we've got to do is build it. Okay, so that's really the outline with it. And obviously I've piling my way through this one because I want to get it basically done or almost ready to sit on the board anyway and to be working perhaps normally without being in its diorama post before I go away. And obviously those of you who know I'm actually away on holiday. We fly out next Saturday, so I won't be doing any work next Friday either because we're travelling up there. So obviously we're pretty much nose to the ground now. I want to get this one almost done, certainly to the point where it's mountable on the board. So I've got 2 weeks to build this as well as run the company. So call me Victor Cayenne, but we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. And also it's one of those ones you can use plenty of width for it. You can build it really how you like and work your way through it. So anyway, as I said, you know, you've seen it, that bit there. Members, you'll see that very first bit for the first thing, and then you're going to go on and see me using resin and all the rest of it and working away. And don't forget, resin you need. One of them, okay? Because trust me guys, it's not nice, and I've got a close friend who's really suffering from not using a mask all these years now, bless him, and he says he should have done. Trust me, you know, that's why I must admit, when you see, I know a lot of people often say to me, you don't wear a mask when you're spraying and everything else. Obviously, I've tried it with a mask and I sound like Darth Vader when I'm spraying and you can't hear me, okay? But when literally the camera goes off, the extractor goes on. I've got this extractor you can see here. It's a top of the range one and it goes out the door like that. And then obviously, as you saw in that video there, I've got my respirator as well, which is always to hand for safety, because honestly guys, it's, you know, it's a hobby. You know, you don't want to be paying for this in later life, and resin is awful stuff to play with. You might as well play with that asbestos or something. Horrible. The other great build that's up on the site at the moment is the Spitfire. Now this is, you know what, 15 quid kit you can get it on the net for. Airfix 1/48 scale Spitfire, sorry, Seafire, I keep saying it all the time. Seafire, okay, great kit. Wings fold, goes together a dream, no problems at all. Now when I was doing this particular build, I had this real thing of like trying to take everybody back a little step so everyone can see a real basic straightforward build, because a lot of questions I get asked, I answer the same questions all the time because people say to me, how do you do such and such, what would you use for this? So the reason I sort of do these basic ones is to cover all these points so people get a real insight on how to build a kit easily, simply, okay? And yeah, let's face it, this is me, so I never overcomplicate anything unless it's something like this. But you know, normally if I'm doing a straightforward build, I try and keep it as simple as possible. That way it's less to go wrong and everything else. So this one, we cover really all the basics. So we're just talking basic building techniques, basic gluing techniques, you know, even just down to sanding and polishing out to give a nice surface for painting and everything else. So what we've actually done, this is the new version of Basic Scale Modelling DVD. Now we had this one out and it's been out I think about 2 years now, something like that. No, probably not, probably as long as about 18 months, 2 years. Great feedback from everybody who sees it, and they say it's great how you cover everything. So what I've actually done is we've kept the original one, which to be honest is in its original low sort of format. You know, it's not in the crystal clear, it's certainly not HD, everything else, and I've included the 7-part 210-minute video version all in HD of the Seafire build. Now the Seafire build, as I said, members, you can see this on the site now, or you will do over the next few weeks. It's coming on, but it's already all on DVD to go out. Now the thing with it is it shows everything, so we're not just talking as we did in the last basic modelling one, gluing, sanding, filling and everything else. We've gone on and we're talking everything right the way through a build start to finish. So obviously we're talking about masking up, we're talking about a basic airbrushing job, and it's camo as well because we do the Seafire with this one right the way through and everything else. So I answer loads of different things on there, and we do a few little things like we use thinners, acrylic thinners instead of a decal softener, little techniques like that I do and everything else. So it really does, you know, help to come along. Thinning putty, you know, all the little bits which I tend to forget about putting down as doing as a one-off, but it's all in here. So if you are interested in it, it's $9.99, comes a sales pitch, ding. Okay, $9.99 for non-members. Altogether, it's got a running time of what, 277 minutes, so it's 4 hours 45 minutes, something like that. Okay, on this one, right the way through, absolutely everything. If you are a member, don't forget you get standard 45% off all DVDs, so it's only $5.99. So there you go, that one is available now. If you have ordered a basic modelling DVD since last Monday, you will get the new version. What it was, there's some of you had them sent out, some of you haven't. What it was, I only had 10 here, they all went out this week. and I just had the next 50 have just come in from the people who do them all for us. So that's all right now. They're all going to go out. They're all going out today and tomorrow. So if you are waiting on one, that's why there was a short delay on your order going out. But say it will be with you in the next couple of days. That is really about it for this week. As I say, we covered a lot, and obviously with the early part with the F16 Suffer showing how that one's going to go. There's fantastic builds going on in the forum, and next week we're going to be having a look at some of your work in the forum, picking some of those great builds out and showing them here and on the main site as well for everybody else to see. I know it's Labour Day in the US this weekend, so have a great holiday weekend. We had ours here in the UK last weekend, and the weather out there, I have to say, is southwest England, and it's September, and it's blue skies, not a cloud out there, and according to my little thing over there, it's 32 degrees as well, so that would explain why I'm sweating somewhat here. I'm going to get back to playing with all this resin and try and get an F16 built in 2 weeks and everything else. Until then, everyone have a happy weekend, have a great holiday if you're having a holiday somewhere, and I'll see you next week.